So we're going to keep the hand glued to the floor the whole time. If at any point you find that you're getting stuck because your opponent's so strong with the elbow position, I'm going to straighten my left arm, keeping my hand on the floor, and I'm going to move my head across graded center line, and my elbow ends up pushing his elbow closer to his head. Now, when I drop and I lower my elbow again, I don't just want his elbow returning to where it was. So when I drop, I'm going to try to shoot my hand deeper. So when Graydon tries to bring his elbow back down again, he finds to his horror that it's stuck up higher than it was just a moment ago. I walk some more. I straighten if I need to, bringing my head across his center line, using my elbow to push his elbow to his head. And then again, when I drop, I shoot my hand deeper. Until we get to a situation like this, where I have his bicep glued up to his head. Now, if I go to take my hand out of position to post the elbow like a lot of people do, a lot of people will go here to post the elbow and pass the head. The problem is that when I take my hand off, his elbow just follows me back down. So it's important that once I get his arm stuck here, I like to latch onto something. Let's rotate. I get the arm stuck here. I like to grab my own elbow, or if my elbow is not available, I like to grab his neck, like so, and I have to keep my shoulder up by his elbow. If I'm down here, he can bring his elbow back, and that'll start to be a little troublesome. Luckily, it's not so bad that I can't just come back up to the elbow and push the elbow back in. So by grabbing onto the neck here, it's a very good tool that when he tries to bring his elbow back to his hip, it's not easy. So I can either grab my own elbow, I can grab his neck. If we're wearing the gi, I'll grab the collar. I'll grab the collar of the jacket. Now, with this situation, I have my elbows. He can't bring his arm back. I'm going to pummel my chin here outside the point of his elbow. Now my head keeps his elbow in place. Now my left arm can come away because now my head holds his elbow. Let's look at that again, okay? That's a lot of details. I have a crossface. I take my wrist inside his elbow and I walk. This only works in one direction, which is why we call it the ratchet. It only tightens, it doesn't loosen. Okay, we walk and we walk. When he tries to fight against me, he finds that the friction of my hand glued to the mat is a hard thing for him to overcome. If at any point I find that I'm running out of progress, I plant my hand, I bring my head across the center line, and I bring my elbow by his head. Now when I drop my right elbow again, I crawl my right hand deeper. If I need to repeat that process, I will. I get to a situation where I can either grab my own elbow or I can grab his neck. Where would I do? Why would I use one over the other? When I walk my opponent's hand up, oftentimes they keep their hands together and they'll be in a situation where I can't adequately get to an arm triangle situation. Even if I get here, this is not an adequate choke because his wrist is stuck here underneath my chest. Whether his hands are connected or whether they're not connected doesn't matter. Even if they're not connected, if he keeps his arm stuck in here, that's gonna screw everything up. So I've got to find a way to extract that wrist. So I walk up using the ratchet and we get here. My right hand is going to grab the collar tie. Remember, I want to anchor my hand to something. Now when he goes to bring his elbow back down, it's stuck. Now I have a free hand to come here, thumb post inside the wrist, and physically take the hand out. If his hand's in the way of my chest, I don't want that. I come in, I can either go here, palm up, or palm down, it's up to you. We pull that hand out of position, and I pummel my head and chest inside the wrist. Now we come back to our position here. Now, I'm pummeling my chin outside the point of the elbow. All right, that's how we get to our arm triangle scenario. Now in this scenario, look at how when I squeeze, you'll see that my elbow is outside my shoulder. This is not an optimal squeezing position. I want to get everything centered, like where we have for darces and anacondas and guillotine, or I'm sorry, rear naked chokes. So what I like to try to do is I'm going to pull my hand, or I'm sorry, I'm going to push his head so I can pull my hand deeper through. Sometimes I'll go with a finger-to-finger grip or palm-to-palm grip, and I'll physically pull my arm up high and through, getting it as deep as I can, getting to a figure 4 grip here. Now from here, I like to work my way around the corner. Okay, so I'm going to start to kind of creep my right knee up. I post off my left foot sometimes, and I'll pull him up to this position here, almost so I'm getting to an angle. Now, as I work around to an angle, my elbows are in front of me. And now from here, when I squeeze, I've got a much better angle for a tight squeeze. Now, sometimes I'll pull the person on top of me, sometimes I'll stay on top. Sometimes I'll do this from side control, but the idea is that I get to a situation with an arm triangle where I can squeeze with my elbows here in a natural position instead of trying to squeeze with a palm-to-palm or figure 4 with everything up to one side. Okay? Can you sit up to a seated position and face just like you are? So when we're here, and I've got my arm triangle out like this, look at how everything's off to one side of me. So I like to try to get to my opponent's side where my elbows are now in front of me, my opponent's in front of me, and I've got his neck in the pocket of my elbow now, as opposed to a situation like this where the pocket of my elbow is around to the back of the neck. I want the pocket of my elbow on the carotid arteries. So I'm coming around a little bit to this angle, squeezing here. Now if I can get to my figure 4 here and squeeze, that's an incredibly tight figure 4 choke. Much stronger, I find, than the traditional way. Scoot a little bit. Where people will be squeezing here, flattening. This can work, like it's worked for a long time, but I struggle to make this work sometimes when I'm squeezing and I'm trying to drive my weight down, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So from here, again, I like to drive my opponent up to their side. I'll lock a rear naked choke or figure 4 grip, and I'll get to a situation where my elbows are right in front of me and he's right in front of me. Now when I squeeze from here, it ends up being very tight. Okay. One more thing to consider with the arm triangles, if you want to lay down this way. I like to try to put the arm triangles on when I have a knee to control the hip, across the 2 hips, or I'm stepping across to the mount. If I put on an arm triangle this way, even in a strong fashion, nothing is stopping Graydon from wrapping his hands around his leg, connecting his hands behind his hamstring. And now he can straighten his leg, and that's gonna open up his neck. It's gonna be very tough for me to keep this part of the neck closed now. Okay, it's almost impossible, in fact. If I ever have an opponent who starts doing this, I recommend just transitioning to back control, to rear triangles and things like this. So I like to do it from the mount. When I'm in the mount position, and now Graydon goes to grab his legs, he finds that my body is in his way. If I'm here, Graydon now has access to his legs and he can open himself up. So so I like to have this leg stepped over, or sometimes I'll be in a knee mount. Now when he goes to grab his leg, it's not as easy, and I can keep his leg away with my knee, or I'll be in the mount. Here I can start to pull him up, getting to a dominant position here, squeezing, just like a rear naked choke. So those are some tips on the standard forms of arm triangles when your opponent's flat on their back and you're on top in either side control or mount. So I hope that helps clear up arm triangles a little bit for you. If your opponent's elbows are back here, it's usually a better idea to go after the neck. If they're wrapping around your body, arm and guillotines are usually a better bet because this arm can't be brought into the center line. But if you have an opponent who's keeping their hands narrow and they're posting on your hips and they're making space, keeping your hips away from their hips, oftentimes using that palm-to-palm grip sucking their elbow into their head, putting them in this weak position here, and locking that figure 4 grip, and breaking them down to unathletic positions is a strong way to go. Anacondas, and even in particular darce chokes, are some of the strongest to escape from. That darce choke, once that darce is locked on, that gets real tight, and it's very hard to defend, very hard to unravel that. So these are some of the strongest submissions out there to make a focus on for you to put your opponents to sleep. Thanks for watching, guys.